Hello again, everybody. Today I'm in Tonopah, Nevada. I'm doing a little something different today. I'm going to visit the Tonopah Historic Mining Park, and should be pretty interesting. I'll walk around and show you the mines that are here. Let me flip this camera around and let me show you this brochure that you pick up when you first start here, and explain some of the sites that we're going to take a look at today. Okay, this is the brochure they give you when you enter the visitor center, and there is an admission fee. I don't know what it is for an adult, but there's different prices depending on if you're a Nevada resident, a non-resident, or if you're a senior citizen. I'm a senior citizen. I had to pay $3. Well worth it. And let me flip this over real quick. And I just wanted to show you this here, where this mining park sits on the portion of Jim Butler's original mining claim staked by Jim and his wife Belle in 1900. You can pause this and you can read the rest of this later. But I did jot this down, where 174 million troy ounces of silver was mined here in the Tonopah area, and 1.8 million tons of troy ounces of gold were mined in this area. So a lot of mining done here. And let me flip this over. Here's a map of what the whole park. It's over 100 acres here, so I'm going to be doing a lot of walking today. And I'm going to start here conveniently over here at the Silvertop Ore House, and also the Silvertop Mine Hoist House and Head Frame. So let me pause this here, and I'm going to start walking, and I'll meet you outside. That's the visitor center. There's a gift shop in there, and they have displays, glass cases filled with many different rock samples, including gold and silver ore. And there's some equipment, shovels, pickaxes, masks that were used back in the day when they were doing mining here. There's a display of some of the old ore cars. Big wheel, I don't know what that came off of. Maybe a big cart, I don't know. But we're going to head down here first, these first two mines. There was a total of 5 mines operating here. We're going to take a walk down here. I'm going to pause this again. When I get closer, I'll give you a close-up view of the mines down here. After Belle and Jim Butler found gold and silver here in the area, word traveled fast, even without modern communication like we have today, like telephones or television, internet. News traveled fast, and they were overwhelmed with prospectors coming into the area wanting a piece of the action. So the Butlers, they never signed the contract, just a simple verbal agreement for 25% of the profits. It was pretty ballsy of them to not have anything in writing, but I guess it worked out for them, not sure. And originally, the mining, they created stopes, which are big holes in the ground, and they were dug out by the early miners in 1900 to 1901. And they dug down 100 feet to dig out the ore. And let me come over here and let me show you. It's kind of dark down there, so I don't know how well you'll be able to see it. But that's a stope. And that was all dug out by hand. And they put those timbers up there to kind of support the walls, prevent them from caving in on them. Still looks pretty dangerous to me. I wouldn't want to be down there. But that's how things got started. And then, they started digging down shafts down into the ground. And that's one of the mines there that has a steel head frame on it. A lot of the earlier ones, all of the early ones were wooden. There's an example of a wooden one over there. We'll walk over there later. But, and I'll get closer to that mine in a little bit. But first I want to check this out. It says Burrow Tunnel. So let's walk down here. And also here you can see a ore car here filled with rocks. And what they would do with this is rocks that didn't contain any gold or silver. It was called talus. And they would put them in these carts and bring them out far away from the mine as they can. And that was convenient, and dump it out into an area like this. So that's what this is all about. This is what this area is, where tailings were dumped. Let's walk down here, find out what this burrow tunnel is. Well, here's a display on a small wooden head frame, and it's perched over top of an opening where a mine shaft goes straight down, and you can see the ore bucket there underneath of it. And that ore bucket had a wire or a rope attached to it, and this winch would be used to pull the bucket up and down, in and out of the mine, to bring ore in and out, or mostly out, not in. And I'm sure this winch was powered by a gasoline motor, very similar to this. And over here, this is the burrow tunnel. There's 200 miles of underground tunnels. And the burrow tunnel is situated on one of Jim Butler's early discovery sites. The entrance is called an adit. Anyway, I'll film this, and you can pause the video, read this at your leisure. And here's the opening to the burrow tunnel. And it's a little dark in here, so I don't know how much you'll be able to see. There's lights, okay. But this would be an example of what the underground tunnels would look like in the mines. Here we get a little better view of the stope that I just filmed earlier. It goes down deep. You hear those noise? I don't know what those are. Is that birds down there? Well, it sounds like pigeons. I'm not sure. Interesting. All right, let's see what's on the other side of this tunnel. Looks like there's an old ore car down here. Where they stored the explosives. And an old ore car. All right, let's go back outside. I'm going to walk down a little further and we'll see what else there is to see here. Well, after a little short walk, there's a display of blacksmithing tools, some hearts, bellows, blow air, get the fire up hotter. Anvil, some more hearths, more anvils, vise. There's a shed over here. Some old tools, looks like some pan for silver or gold. No, I don't think that is a pan. It's way too heavy. I'm not sure what that would be for. An old shovel. So these blacksmiths, they would make and repair the mining equipment used here in the mines. There's another storage shed over here. Wheelbarrow. All right, let me head back up here. Now there's a bunch of pigeons flying now, so maybe that was the noise we heard earlier when I looked down the stope. I'm looking over here. Looks like there's the remains of let me zoom in a little bit, of an old wooden head frame that looks like it burnt down. It definitely has fire damage on it. And a little further down here, there's the remains of an old car. Maybe it was the Butler's, one of the Butler's cars. I don't know. Doesn't say, it's not labeled. That's right here. And there's also a door to a safe. I'm going to walk up and we'll check out these other two mines that are up on the hill here. Okay, this is the Silvertop Mine hoist house and head frame. That's the head frame. That's the hoist house. And hoist house obviously has a hoist in it, has a winch. It has a cable running out of it, runs to the top of the head frame. And at the end of the cable would be a bucket that would be lowered down into the shaft. Miners would put the ore into the bucket, and then the hoist would pull it out and bring it up to the surface to be processed. And all around this area, there's just an abundance of old tools and equipment that was used in the mining process. I don't know what half this stuff is. This looks like it might have been used as some kind of a drill to drill into the rock. Let me see if I can get a little closer, get a look at the business end of this. Yeah, this was a drill. There's the drill head. This looks like a earlier model of that. Over here, there's some kind of a tank, some kind of valve. And there's a storage shed and a wooden trestle over there. All kinds of other odds and ends laying around here. Again, not quite sure. Actually, this over here looks like it was a water cannon, and they would shoot water out of that and blast the rock out of the side of a hill or a mountain to loosen it and do some mining that way. And I'm not sure what maybe part of a winch or something over here. Not quite sure. These over here, these look like the buckets that might have been lowered into the mine to bring the ore out. Yeah, that's what this is. And there's another one back there. And if I walk around over here, I had mentioned earlier that this head frame is steel, so this is a little more modern. All the original ones, as far as I know, were all wooden. This looks like part of the winch here. Yeah, you can see the cable over here. Here's the cable. That would have been tied to those buckets. And then that lowers and raises in and out of the mine. And over here is an old stamp mill. This is a small one. And as that wheel was turned, these stamps would go up. They look like pistons on a engine, but they would go up and down. The ore would pass underneath them, and it would crush the rocks up into smaller pieces. Bunch of other stuff over here, more storage sheds. This must have been a pretty busy place back in the day. Another old wreck of a car here. Another ore bucket to the left of it. Some other rusty bits and pieces of things. This looks like it might be another drill bit. An old jack. Another jack over here. I think those jacks were used to lift up the frames that they had underneath the, underground in the tunnels to support the tunnels from caving in. I'm not sure what all these other rusty pieces were from. This looks like it might have been an old jackhammer. Oh, drill. Handheld drill. Interesting. I wonder how heavy that thing was. Must not have been fun to work with that. All kinds of Neat little rusty things left over from the day. A whole big pile of it here. And there's another, looks like a truck maybe, stake bed truck, manufactured by White. Little steam shovel here. I believe this up here, let me zoom in. I believe that looks like an old cement mixer. See if I can zoom in. See if I can get a little closer. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's an old cement mixer. There's a smaller cement mixer over there. I'm not sure what those other pieces of equipment in between are. All right, I got to do some walking. I'm going to head over that direction. That's the silver. Whoops, sorry. Where am I? There it is. That's the Silver Top Ore House. And I'll take a walk over there. Well, on my way to the ore house, I spotted this building. I saw the sign, said this was the carpenter shop. I tried the door, and the door was open. So let's take a look inside here. All kinds of, you got old tires here. Let me zoom out. Oops, that's in. Sorry. Anyway, it won't let me zoom out. Got a bunch of old equipment here, shovels, pry bars, some kind of a cart. Old table, look at an old workbench filled with old parts and tools. Even some pieces of ore. Look at all these tools. Some big wrenches for working on big machines. That's a big funnel, an old funnel. I wish I could tell you what all this other stuff was. There's a display of old bottles, glass bottles, tin cans. More tools. Not sure. This is a drill. Here's the business end of the drill. Not sure what powered this or how it was powered. All right, we won't touch it, I promise. Chairs for those rare times when some of the miners and carpenters and blacksmiths would get a break. More tools. This looks like, I don't know, probably powered by water, looks like. To do what? I'm not quite sure. If you know, let me know. Put it down in the comments. Let me know what that was for. saws. Pretty neat. A whole bunch of other old parts and tools here. And in the middle of the floor is this tent. I'm not sure. I bet you this would have been outside at one point. But it looks like there's a bed in here. This would have been maybe a place for one of the miners to stay at night. Let's see, there's a sign here. Let's see what it says. Well, I'll let you read that. You can pause that and read it. Doesn't really tell me though what it is. There's some more memorabilia here. There's an old stove. Keep the place warm at night. Do some cooking on top of it. A little table to do meal prep. An old water tank. Keep some drinking water in there. Interesting. Look at this old floor in this carpenter shop. It's well over 100 years, but it's still in pretty good shape. All right, I'm gonna head back outside. We'll go to the ore house. On my way to the ore house, I spotted this large machine. It was on wheels. I'm not sure what it was used for or how it was used. And then there's a couple of outbuildings here. I'm sure they kept the tools, stored equipment to be used in the mining process, obviously. But that's where I'm headed to. I wanted to show you this. This is an old wagon. Once you dug the ore out of the mine, you had to have a way of transporting the ore to a place to be processed. And that's what these were for. They were horse-drawn, obviously. And not sure how far away the processing houses were from here. I'm getting close to the ore house here, Silvertop ore house. And again over here, well, let me get a little closer. Remember earlier I showed you that small stamp mill right here in front of me. There's a larger stamp mill. And like I said, those stamp mills were used to crush the ore, to break up the large pieces, make them smaller. And inside this ore house would be a number of those stamp mills to crush up the rock. There's an example of a wooden head frame. And you can see there's two trestles leading from the head frame. This one here that goes off to the right, and you can see a simulation of someone dumping out an ore car, and that's where the towelings would go. Again, that would be the rock that was deemed to be not containing silver or gold. You know, rock that was of no value. And you can see a big pile of it here. And then this other trestle going into the ore house would be pushed by hand into the ore house, and that would contain the ore that they felt was containing silver and gold. And it would go into this ore house, and again, there'd be stamp mills inside, crushing it up. And then that crushed up rock would be put in those wagons that I just showed you, and then taken to be processed elsewhere. And over here is the hoist house. Again, that would contain the winch that had the cable running up to the head frame. And then that would lower a bucket down into the mine and bring out the ore. So it's still in pretty good shape considering how old it is. Yeah, that's closed up inside. We can't go inside. It's too bad. It'd be interesting to see that, but I'm sure it's too dangerous for us to go in there. All right, I got a long walk. I'm gonna head up to the top of that hill there and check out that next mine. As I was walking to my next destination, I saw this placard and noticed that they had first a narrow gauge, a 3-foot gauge railroad running underneath this ore house. And then in 1905, that railroad was converted to a standard gauge, which is 4 feet 8 inches. And I'm gonna let you pause this video. You can read this. But that's interesting. I guess the wagon was used before the railroad was built. And then once the railroad was built, I guess they didn't need those wagons anymore. That's pretty neat. I don't see any of the old railroad equipment here. Let me walk up here, and you can see underneath the ore house where the trains would have run. And the ore would be dumped into the gondolas pulled by the locomotives. Let me zoom in. Pretty neat. All right. It's too bad none of the old railroad equipment is here. Okay, I'm going to continue walking up to this next mine I see up here. There's another old shed. Nice worn wood and a rusty steel roof on it. This was the site of the Montana Tonopah mine and mill site. Again, I'm going to let you pause the video and you can read this entire thing at your leisure. But that mine and mill site, the buildings are gone. All that's left are these foundations of where it once stood. And I believe if we go over here, is the pit that went in down into the mine. Yeah, they got it covered up with these concrete slabs, but that's where the pit would have been. All right, I'm going to walk up a little further up this way and I'll show you the one mine that's still existing here. But actually, as I'm walking up there, I see a couple other interesting things you might want to see. It's like an old rail car. This was a cabin for Barbara Graham. All right. You had to be a hardy woman to be out in this area, be around these miners all day. Again, I'll let you pause the video. You can read that. Look at this old rail car. Neat. They tried to make it comfortable to sit on with these springs. And let's walk down here to this cabin. Yep, this is the Barbara Graham house. Not very big, not very luxurious, but this was home for this woman. All right, it's actually bigger than the van that I live in, so I could see where someone could live in there. and make do. All right, I got a little more walking to do. A lot of walking to get up to this last mine that I'm going to go to. They do offer guided tours where you can ride on a side-by-side. I didn't ask how much that was. I thought I was going to walk. I wasn't going to take advantage of the guided tour. But it is available, so you might want to ask about it if you come here. Save you a lot of footsteps. I'm sure you'll get a lot more information than what I'm just giving you off the top of my head and what I'm reading on these placards. I'm almost at the last mine, and I see this truck. It has a boom on it, and attached to it is a cage that's sitting right on top of an open shaft. In that cage, a miner would get in there and he'd be lowered down into the mine or brought back up at the end of the day. Pretty interesting. From here too, we can, I'll show you. That's the first mine we went to look at. And then over here was the second one we looked at. And if I zoom back out, you can see the town of Tonopah. It spreads out pretty far. It's not a very big city. It's a decent size. And it extends all the way over here. And right over here is the last mine that we're going to take a look at today. This one looks like a little more substantial head frame, wooden again. Corrugated metal hoist house. Outside here, there's an old, what's the word I want to use now? Generator. It's one of the vehicles they would use to do the tours with. It's a good looking mine here. And this one is called, give me a second, let me look it up here. The Mizpah mine, M-I-Z-P-A-H. Now that head frame has two cables running to it. So I guess the amount of ore you could pull out of there at any one time was much bigger than the others we just looked at. And it looks like in front of the mine there was these bins you could dump the ore into. You pull up a wagon or a truck and dump the ore out into them and then transport them to the processing center. Yeah, here you can see the chutes. You can open and close those up and let the ore fall into a truck or a wagon that was parked underneath of them. Pretty cool. All right, there's two other mines here, but they're closed. So I'm not going to bother walking over there. And I think I've shown you enough to give you a pretty good idea of what there is to see here at this mining museum. Well worth it, especially if you're a senior and it's $3. But you might want to consider doing the guided tour and be driven around instead of hiking around like I did. I do a lot of hiking, so it wasn't a big deal. But if you've watched to this point, I really appreciate it. And as always, thanks for watching. Be well, keep smiling. Remember, all shall be well. And be grateful for everything you have. Till the next time, have a great day, and I'll see you later.